11,000 feet. So that's pretty low to the surface. They had to be something that would return a radar signal, and that would have to be something metallic. But in order, radar is a very simple thing, and it's a radio beam that has to hit something and return, bounce off of something and come back. So it had to be something it would bounce off of, and it wouldn't bounce off of a rubber balloon or anything like that. It would have to be something of a metallic nature that would cause it to bounce back and make a indication on your radar screen. It would have to be in the thousands, up in that area, the speed-wise, that these things could move. It would have to be very fast. And the radar people was having a hard time determining any speed on them, because they'd be one place and they'd sit for a little while and they'd move real fast, and then by the time the radar screen got around to painting them, they was already at their other location, you know. And so it was very difficult to get any kind of a speed on them, but they were fast, very, very quick. You could be watching one in the east, and if you looked around for a little bit, your attention was diverted someplace else for just a minute. You look around and he'd be over in the west, and you could actually see them going. It wasn't like they disappeared and rematerialized or something. They were visible the whole time, but they would go very, very rapidly. They could make quick turns. They had all sorts of maneuverability that we didn't know anything about at the time, and it was a very strange evening. So we're looking at least a 4-hour time frame that we were messing around with these things. In those days, every base had what they call a UFO officer, an unidentified flying object officer, and we had one on Edwards, and he had to be the guy that actually give the order, yeah, I'd like to take a look at this thing. In other words, the people at the air defense sector down at LADS, and the radar, which is the radar people and that, and they wanted to take a look at it, but they had to more or less get his say-so before they could go ahead and do it legally. So they rousted him out of the bed at the wee hours, and he gave them permission to, yeah, he'd like to take a look at it. So that's how it kind of come around to getting the scramble off. At that point in time, we had on Edwards Air Force Base, there was a rocket, what we call the rocket site, and they were messing around there with a whole lot of different fuel combinations, and doing a lot of rocket burns and stuff over there just to see what thrust they could get, and doing all kind of tests. And from my standpoint, that looks like just about where he was sitting, just about over that rocket site. And I mean, that's just pretty much where he was. And that rocket site, from the tower, from where my vantage point was to the rocket site, was probably 10 miles across the dry lake bed. The F-106 that they did scramble that night was what they call a cold bird. It wasn't armed in any way. It was just a normal aircraft. I've heard times guys talk about they have seen things and that, but for the things I've just mentioned, they wouldn't necessarily come forward and say what they had seen, because they didn't want the stigma attached to them that they were crazy, or they were seeing things, or they didn't want the ribbing that they were going to get from their buddies. And the air defense people could not admit that they couldn't defend us. So there you are. The tape that was used to make the tape that's in existence now of the incident that night was really radio patches and telephone patches that was recorded at the various radar sites that was involved in this thing. There would be another tape as well someplace that would be from the tower that I was in, because everything that was going on in the tower is recorded, and there would have been a recording of that. At the most of the objects that I saw at any one time was 7. There was one large one, then there was 3 smaller ones with the same type characteristics, but these three kind of stayed together, and then they were at a certain point after this, and there was three other ones that were flying around like individually. But at one point in time, I had as many as 7 visually at one time. If I'm hearing the tapes and everything now, I hear that there might have been as many as 11 in the area somewhere that night. I can't tell you what it was. I can tell you a lot of things it wasn't. And it wasn't anything that we know of today that could fly, have those type of characteristics, could do the maneuvers, and do the speeds with no sound that I heard, or anything like that. And at certain points in time, they were close enough to the tower that if it had been a jet or something, I'd have heard the sound from it, because I could, you know. But as far as being able to tell you what it was, I cannot tell you. I wish I knew.